Hi kids, welcome to the show. This one, I'm going to be showing you how I did this graphic. This graphic has opened up a number of these lessons, and I'm going in a different direction with my title sequence, so I'm getting rid of this graphic. But I figured this would make a good lesson to show you how to do this. So this is a MoGraph type lesson. If you're using something other than 2.79, then some of the positions of some of these buttons may be moved around. We're going to use this cube, obviously, and I'm going to add a plane thus. I'm going to scale that plane up to a nice size, and remember, I'm not going to duplicate what you saw exactly, but I'm going to show you how I did it. So it's just, as I said, a matter of pushing buttons. Let me get the camera in the right position, which I'm hitting G with the camera selected, moving it a little bit, then G, middle click, pull it back a bit, so we get that. Now if I render this right now, you get cube sitting in the middle of the plane. Great. Good. We're off to a good start. Next, I'm going to choose, I don't have to be looking through the camera for this. I'm going to choose the cube. Now I'm going to parent the cube to the plane. It's important that the plane be the parent. So I choose the cube, right-clicking it, hold down Shift, and choose the plane. With those both select, choose cube first, then plane. Then I'm going to hit Control P to set the parent, and I'm just going to hit the first one, object. Now that's done. What that means is if I grab the plane and move it, the cube's going to move with it. That doesn't matter. Here's what matters. When you have it set this way, you can use dupliverts. Now, dupliverts is a way of duplicating one object at the position dictated by another object. I'll show you what I mean. I have the plane selected. Object panel. It's the little cube up here. And all the way down here, see? Duplication, verts. Bam! You see, the cubes appear at the corners because that's where the vertices are. Now, let me show you something. I'm going to render this quick, and you'll notice that the only thing here are these four cubes. My original cube and the plane are gone, because as long as you're using dupliverts, the objects that you use to construct whatever it is you're making are automatically removed from the render. So they don't get in your way, you don't have to move them to another layer, you don't do anything weird for them, the program takes care of that. There is one problem that's a little annoying about it though, and that is if you look up at the outliner, upper right hand corner here, you see the plane is listed, but the cube is not. So this gets to be a little bit annoying, because if you want to go select this cube and do something to it, it's hard to find in amongst all this stuff, and you have to do it from this window. You can't do it from the outliner, but you can do this. You hit the eye, turns that on, then you could select the cube, turn this back on. Okay, if it comes to that point. Now the next thing we want to do is we want a whole bunch of these cubes, because I didn't just have 4. I had 17 by 17, just so you know. So how do we get that? Modifier. Make sure the plane is selected, not the cube. And I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier. And every place this thing has a vertex, it's going to put a cube. So I take it up to 2. I take it up to 3. That should be about 8. I take it up one more time. That'll give me the number that I had in my original video. Of course, they weren't arranged like this, so I hit simple. And now the problem is, as you can see, these cubes are huge and they're all overlapping each other. So now we get to what I was talking about. I'm going to turn that off, choose my cube, turn that back on, and then hit S and scale down the cube. And what I'm watching is I'm watching all the duplicates to see when they have space between them. And that's about it. So that's the size I want. Render it, there it is. Okay, that's basically it. Now we want that displacement. We're going to do that with, first of all, make sure I have the plane selected. and which you can tell because it's lit up here. You can also tell that these are all outlined. And here's my modifier that I put on it. Now I'm going to add another modifier, and it's going to be a displace. You notice they all jump up there. What's that all about? That's what it does. Because when you first add the modifier, it comes up all white. Here, texture, new, don't hit that. Go over here and hit this. Show texture in texture tab. By hitting this, it takes you to the texture tab where you can adjust everything. And it also links it to that particular displacement. So now I'm going to add clouds. You can see it does this. And I probably used a scale about 125 because that's what I usually use. Knock the depth off. And there it is. You can see we've already pretty much got my graphic. The only difference is it's not quite as pretty as that one. I'm not going to worry about getting it too exact though. Although I would like to just shrink that cube a little bit because I want more space between them. There we go. Also, and this is just aesthetics, I'm going to go in here and make the background black. That's in the World tab. And I'm going to turn on ambient occlusion at about 0.2 because that's where I usually use it, unless I have a reason not to. That makes it lit and pretty and pretty much what we had, except for the colors. Now, so the way we do the colors is I'm using, let me hit T to get rid of this tool thing over here. I go up to the little spider web and I'm going to yank it to the left. Left click, yank to the left. That gives me another window. I'm going to change that window to a node editor. Then with my object, my cube selected, so I have to go over here, turn this off so I can select my cube, make sure my cube is selected. Then I'm going to hit use nodes. And this gives me the material for this cube. If I render it now, you'll see it's just black because I haven't assigned a material to it yet. So I hit new. Now it has a material. Now it's going to look like it looked before. Fine. Now here's where it gets fun. With the nodes, I can add Shift A. Wow. Oh, by the way, anytime you use hotkeys, the hotkeys affect the window that has your mouse pointer in it. So if I'm adding a node, I hit Shift A, that brings it up here. But if I do that over here, I don't know what it does. It doesn't do anything in that window. Shift A, input, and I'm going to go for object info. Now here's where it gets fun. Because each of these objects, even though they're duplicates of one object, they're all separate objects as far as Blender is concerned. I can't choose them separately, but they do have their own properties. So if I choose this object info node, and I take the random out of here and stick it in here, now I render this, and you'll see that now they randomly go from white to black and all shades in between. Gets better. But I didn't have that, I had colors. So I am going to add a converter color ramp right here. Now, let me show you what this can do. In fact, I'm going to change this to, what do you call it? Rendered. Let me go back to, just so we can see this going on as I do it. Change this to rendered, and there it is. If I move the slider, see, now they're mostly white, and there's a few dark ones. If I move this up here and I bring this up, now they're mostly dark, and there's a few light ones, etc. If I wish, I can change this to constant, and now there are a bunch of black ones, and now it's about half white, half black, as you can see. If I change this from black to some other color, such as purple, now there's half white and half purple. And if I want just a few purple, I can do this. If I want a lot of purple, I can do this. You get the idea. Now, I'm going to show you how I got the colors that I got in the video you were actually watching. First, I go back to linear, which is what it is by default. Spread this out. Now you can see I have a nice range, but I had this, there's something else you could do, which if I change this from RGB to HSV, doesn't seem to change much. That's because I don't have a color here. Let me change this to say red. Let me change this one to some other distinctly different color, such as green. Now you see it fills in yellow in between. If I pull this over here, well actually, let me just switch these around. I'm going to do more or less a spectral thing. So I'm going to add another one, put it up at this end, and make that one blue. Yeah, there we go. Now we have a spectrum. And of course I can shift the weighting of it around to where I like it. And that's very vibrant. I had it a lot less saturated. So let me tell you about this real quick. RGB stands for red, green, blue. Everybody knows that. So when you click this, you have red, green, and blue sliders. HSV, which is what I changed this to, stands for hue, saturation, and value. So the top one, if you watch up here as I move this slider, you see it just goes around the rim. Okay? Saturation moves it closer to the center. And value is going to move this slider, its brightness, because it stands for hue, saturation, and value. Okay? I'll put that back about 9. So what I'm going to do is just turn the saturation down till I have a lovely pastel color down here. Then I go to this one, turn the saturation down, and go to this one, turn the saturation down, and then we have pretty much what I had. Right here, by the way, get rid of this window, and I have this. Now I'm going to render it, proper render. There it is, how it looks from the camera. Oh, I didn't bother showing you how I did the animation. Okay, I'll do that quick. Let's get back to the 3D window. This is just a matter of animating this displacement. So I do this by adding an empty. And then I pick the plane, go to my displacement modifier here, and here it says texture coordinates local. I change that to object. The object that I want is the empty. Now you see how it messed up? That's because this empty can apply its own scale to your texture. So all I do is I grab the empty, which I still... Okay, grab the empty, and I'm going to hit scale, and just scale it up until that looks the way I want it to look again. Okay, now as you can see, this big cross is irritating looking. If that bothers you, you can change that independently of the scaling. You do that in this data tab, and then just hit the size. That's just the size of the display of the empty. It has nothing to do with any scaling or anything that's applied. So now I've got this looking the way I want it. So if I grab this empty and move it around, you'll see that the texture moves around very nicely. So the way I animated it was I added a Bezier circle, which I rotated 90 degrees around the y-axis because I wanted it going up and down instead of sideways, because otherwise this would just slide around and that's annoying. So I scale that up about like that. Again, I'm not duplicating it, I'm just showing you what I did. Then I have to choose my empty, go to constraints, and I'm going to add a follow path constraint, and the target is the circle. Now, as you can see, the empty jumps right to the edge of the circle. And if I hit animate right now, Alt-A, nothing happens. But that's okay. Hit animate path, now something happens. And as you can see, the empty is flying around the rim of that circle. Just being incredibly happy. Now, I made that a looping animation. As you can see, when it gets to the end of the timeline, here it comes. It'll all of a sudden jump back, see, and start over. I wanted this to loop. So if I go to the circle and check its properties under the curve menu here, down here, where is it? Frames 100. In order for this to loop, I have to match. So I have to match this n number here to whatever's over here. I could do it one of two ways. I can either change my timeline to 100 frames, or I can change my path animation to 250 frames, or change them both to whatever number I want. But in order for it to loop, they have to match. Now I changed it to 100. So, bam, there it is. So the end result of all that is this. Now, there's a whole lot more you can do with dupliverts. In this particular case, I did not turn them into real objects. I didn't put any modifiers on them or do anything like that. I'm going to do another video where I go more into that stuff and show you the full power of this really incredible and totally underused tool in Blender. Other than that, oh, you can also use this for modeling. I'm using it for MoGraph, but you can also use this to help you create models. Another video I'll go into that. So in the meantime, I'd like you to play with this. I want to see what you actually do with it. Don't be afraid. Make your little videos. Put them up right here. Put them up on the forum. I want to see them. I hope you enjoy this. If you have any questions, put those here. I will answer them. Good luck.